water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna. We're going to Mount Zion, AME Zion Church and Graveyard. And I think the pastor is going to be there. Hopefully, anybody who wants to go inside the building will be able to go inside. But when I was writing my book, Reverend Demita Wilder was a lady who was the pastor there. The black community has always allowed women preachers, as far as I know, from way back. But the white community has not. I think we're getting close. Yeah, there it is right there. So I don't know if he's here. If he's not, I'll say some more words about it. I don't see a car, do you? Okay. So this is Mount Zion, AME Zion Church. And up on the hill is the graveyard.
There you go. Microphone.
Okay. Up there's the graveyard. And when I was writing the book, oh here, maybe here he comes.
Yep.
I went up there and I walked the whole hillside to get the names of the veterans that are buried up there. And I listed them in my book.
Oh.
So
you want us to
Yeah.
get out? Okay.
see what he has to say. If he,
And I have a cowbell, and when it's time to get back on the bus,
please pay attention to the ringing of the bell.
Did you have it replaced?
May 16th.
glad we can get in. We didn't know if we would have somebody to be able to meet us here, so this is good. Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, it's beautiful.
What are all the different kinds of responses?
My grandfather said that his father and he and a couple of the locals built a church and moved it over here. Of course, you can tell by the tongue and groove now. This is, if you got it done in your house, it's expensive now. But this is the way they done everything. This is the way it was built, and it took a lot of time, a lot of work. But I remember coming to church here when I was young. Well, it seems like yesterday, but 60 years ago, it would be packed. The church would be packed, and of course, we're not as modernized as we are now. The old wood stoves that there, my uncle would get up early in the morning on Sunday mornings and come and during the wintertime and build a fire. And up top would freeze and would stay warm, but your feet would stay cold. It was good times. And we had Sunday school here. We'd come to Sunday school at 9 o'clock, my cousins and I. And at 11 o'clock, the church services would start. And sometimes my grandpa would let me ring the old church bell out here. And it was good. It was just because you could hear church bells throughout the surrounding church bells just going off at 11 o'clock. The old Baptist church over here, and you could actually hear some church bells ringing up on Warrior Hut. It was just amazing. It was just live. Yes, ma'am.
Can you speak louder?
Loud.
Can you move closer?
Do you still have, are there still services here?
Yes, our pastor. That's our pastor, Reverend Mitchell, right there. There were few in numbers, but they're few in numbers. We hold it together.
How many people regularly worship on Sunday?
Last Sunday was just 4 of us,
How often do you have services?
just on Sundays.
Every Sunday, don't you?
Yes, every Sunday at 11 o'clock. And in the wintertime, I get to come up and turn the heat on in the morning so it's nice and warm in here. But I don't mind.
You still get to ring the bell?
No, my grandfather made a stop. He was afraid that the bell's still up there, but he was afraid that it was, the wood and everything holding it up was rotten, and then pulled it down on top of it. But actually, the pastor, we talked about trying to fix the bell. It would be nice, you know, to back in the old days where you hear the bell, church bells ringing at 11 o'clock. Then back then when we'd have service, it would start at 11 o'clock. And when the pastor got done, he got done. It wasn't out of here at 12 o'clock. It was when he said the word, it may be 1 o'clock, it may be 2 o'clock.
Maybe this will help everybody hear you.
I'm not used to it.
Just talk into this part right here, just hold it
I
up.
did used to work at the radio station in Weston now.
Can y'all hear me?
I have a question about the Methodist Episcopal, the AME. I've never quite understood how that all came together. You know, it's like Methodist and Episcopal. It's historically, where did that? Because there's a lot of African American churches that say AME.
John can tell you a lot more about it than I could.
I'll say this one thing, and of course his name went right through my mind. Richard Allen. There's people, how many people, whoops.
There you go, try it.
Can you hear me? No? Let's take it out.
Technology is great.
Can you hear me? No?
Yeah, oh, it's got an echo on it, okay. Go ahead.
The people who owned people would take the Africans to church with them. And sometimes, you know, if they were wealthy, they had a spot upstairs, you know, in the balcony where they could listen. And they did not know that the people were actually intelligent. They were listening and they were paying attention. And that's where you get a lot of the spirituals and the songs that come, because they are singing songs based on what they learned in church. Well, when freedom came, Richard Allen and a bunch of the ones that had to sit up in the balcony for a long time decided to come down and pray at the altar. And when they came down to the altar, they were bodily thrown out of the church. So that started the African Methodist Episcopal Church, or African Methodist Church at the time. It wasn't Episcopal at that time. Reverend John,
Yes, ma'am.
you want to come up here and talk to them for a little bit?
Can you just tell us a little bit about the history of this church?
We got it all back there.
Well, you want to read it?
Here, look,
Don't
take
you
that,
make it one of those?
take that with you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
When I was writing the book, All God's Children, Reverend Wilder was here, and she helped form a group that, what's your last name?
Mitchell, you wanna read this?
You're doing better.
He's gonna read information, but anyway.
Pastor, you got a better voice.
He
than I.
became a part of a group that she formed over at Western Carolina University, and he's stuck with it all these years, and I'm proud of you.
Thank you, ma'am.
He's done an excellent job.
Let me get my
He really
glasses
has.
out of the car.
Oh, he doesn't.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Johnny, Alan.
And he doesn't have his glasses, but you.
Oh, here, maybe you can see through these. I don't know if you can. Are these too strong for you?
No, you didn't do it.
You've got about 50 pair up there.
Oh, I do know that.
He's like Fred Sanford up there on that.
Right here, when we do our, homecoming,
You gotta be voice.
and what this is an outline of every pastor that's been here, and every bishop that, has been through. And right here is August 20, Mount Zion African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church history, August 23rd, 1892. So y'all are welcome to get a program before y'all leave. It says, together in a little log cabin in Dix Gap, a group of African American organized and established Mount Zion African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church. They built it on a hill where Robinson Hall is now located on the campus of Western Carolina University, formerly known as Western Carolina Teachers College. And the first African American cemetery, it was the only African American church in Jackson County with its own cemetery by 1926. The cemetery has 76 graves. Then a new location in 1929 due to the expansion of Western Carolina University, and after 3 years of negotiating the purchase of the property the church was built on, ECU bought the church property, and Mount Zion relocated to its current location at 3579 Old Cullowhee Road. The new property was purchased by the church. The move took place with an agreement among church members and the stipulation that the church or cemetery would never be moved again. Under the leadership of Reverend W.L. Longhorn, the bodies were exhumed from the cemetery and moved to the new location on Old Cullowhee Road. The membership consisted of about 30 people. So there's 30 bodies that they brought. They moved from Western Campus to where we are today. The new property was purchased by the church. The move took place with the agreement among church members and the stipulation that the church or cemetery would never be moved again. Under the leadership of Reverend W.L. Longhorn, the bodies were exhumed from the cemetery and moved to the new location, which was on Old Cullowhee Road. Western Carolina placed a marker in front of Robinson Hall, where the church once stood, dedicating and commemorating the Mount Zion, AME Zion Church and the role it played in the development of the university. The marker remains today, past to the present, changes from 1974 to this present day, which was 2022. Mount Zion has been blessed with many things. You know, we've been really truly blessed. I came here in 2005. I used to be a member of Riverview Baptist Church, you know, and God had a plan. He moved me here. I was an usher here for a while, and I never thought I would be the pastor of this church to this day. So, you know, God works in mysterious ways, and, you know, I'm very blessed, you know, I had a chance to spend time with some of the members that are going on home to be with the Lord, the Allens, the Rogers, and the Whiteside, you know, and their children are here today. Danielle and Frida, they're here today, and they're part of the congregation now, and we're truly blessed. You know, we're few in numbers, but God can do a great, mighty work through a few people. So we fellowship with the Methodist Church on campus, and that pastor out there is Reverend Mitchell. So sometimes I'll go to their service at 9 o'clock, and then I come here and pastor this church here at 11 o'clock. But that's what it's about, us working together, coming together as one. I do not look at denomination. Hey, I just look at, well, there's only one heaven, there's one hell, and our mission is to save others, tell people about the goodness of Jesus and what Jesus has done for us. Amen. And bring us unbelievers to be believers and continue to make disciples. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're all here, is to make disciples and share God's word with others as they did 2,000 years ago. Let people know about Jesus and what Jesus has done for us, and let them know, hey, it can change all of us. You know, we're all forgiven, but we got to be wanting. We got to want to be forgiven, but most important, we have to allow Jesus in our heart, and it starts right there. And you know, I didn't know about the group of people that was coming today until like yesterday. I was at work. I work at church at school, and Reverend Bryson called me and says, you know they're meeting at your church at 11. I said, really? I said, I'm at work right now. I'm about to call Brother Donnie to come open the doors. But, you know, he told me it was 10:30 this morning. And I live in Cherokee, and Donnie and Frida, they live right around the corner. So, you know, I thank God for them, and I thank God for this church. And, you know, and God is using each and every one of us. And it's just so important that we allow him to use us. We're vessels. and we're spiritual beings in His vessels, and just let God use you. And I just thank God for y'all come this morning to visit. If we can be of any help, hey, let us know. And that's what it's about. You know, and as I was telling my members, this is a building that we worship, but we're the church.
Yes.
All of us is the church. So wherever we go, we take God's word with us and we share it with other people. And that's what it's about, just showing that love and care and kindness to other people. And, you know, let your light shine. You know, you wonder why people are drawn to you. The reason they're drawn to you is because they see Jesus in you. They see that light. They see that special glow, that anointing on you. And that gives us all an opportunity to witness. I just have a title here. I'm the pastor. And my job is just, hey, to share God's word, what God has for me that Sunday, for us to take and go out into the world and make disciples out of others. And it's so important that we just all work together as one and do God's work. And that's how I look at it. Being a pastor is no more important than sitting in a congregation. You know, we all got the same calling, and that's to share God's word throughout the nation. You know, and let God use each and every one of us.
How do you keep this beautiful, look at this wonderful sanctuary. How do you keep it with a really small congregation?
We all work together. A few of us, we all work together. My wife is not here today, and she usually, you know, her and Frida, and there's a couple that come from Bryson City. You know, we all come together and say, hey, we're gonna come to church, we're gonna clean up, we're gonna do this and that. We just work together. You know. Yeah.
I didn't bring my phone in, but people, you should take some pictures of this and send them to me afterward. I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, and we got some programs. We have some programs back there we use for church anniversary. Y'all are welcome to grab one. So y'all, it has the history on it. It has all the bishops on there from 1924, and also has all the pastors that's been through here as well. Y'all are more than welcome to grab a program. You know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sure appreciate
And
it.
I didn't realize when I seen her, I know her. You know? Like she said, I was a part of the,
She's in everybody's business.
what do you call it? GQ, ain't it?
Yeah, GQ Ministries.
Ministry,
Yeah.
so, you know, that has faded out, but hey,
Yeah.
we're still striving.
Appreciate you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming down.
All the way over
Yes,
here.
ma'am.
We appreciate it.
Okay.
Real quick, I'll say, I think I'm gonna say it somewhere else, but you see this cemetery is what they call a graveyard. It's because it's at a church. When the burial site is at a church, they're called graveyards. A plot set aside somewhere all by itself is called a cemetery. But people do use the words in different ways. But you can understand why it's called a graveyard, because it's the yard of the church. Okay.
How many veterans did you say were up there?
You know, I don't know how many, but they're in my book. I've listed them in my book.
Quite a few.
Yeah, yeah.
My grandfather was World War I. I know he's up there, and my uncle, he was in Korean War, and my dad
What's his
was
name? Your names, their names.
My grandfather was William Henry,
Okay,
and he's up there in Top Cemetery, and my uncle Howard Rogers, he's up there. He was in the Korean War,
okay.
and I'll probably be up there. I wasn't in any war, but
Oh,
I get my flag, or my kids will.
Well,
Matter of fact, I've got my dad was in World War II, but he's buried in Fairview Cemetery, Mom and he, and I've got both of their flags. So
all right.
Cool.
And I brought Ann's book, so when we're having lunch, y'all can look through it and see it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we just have a couple of minutes to get back up on the bus.
Yeah, we're
Thank
helping
you,
y'all.
appreciate it, thank you.
About helping each other out. Meeting the needs of people.
Next thing on our list is this wonderful lady up here, Eleanor Bryson Forney. Yay!
Yay!
Our wonderful driver. Eleanor belonged to the organization called One Dozen Who Care that some of you have heard about. Some of you have been to the Multicultural Women's Development Conference, and she was a member there, and she usually does our decorations for that because she and her husband own a company called A Party in a Box. A Party in a Box. It is an event planning and decorating business. So you can always talk with her if you have some event coming up, and really especially for the kids, they just love the balloons and all of the beautiful decorations that she puts together. She's married to Thomas Forney, and Elena went to Western Carolina University and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And thank goodness she returned to us out here in this area. She's a member of Riverview Baptist Church, and I mean, listen to this list. She serves as the Vacation Bible School Director, the Gospel Choir Director, Youth and Young Adult, which they call Yaya. She's a director. She's the head of the kitchen committee, and she served on the budget committee. And now she's our bus driver. Yay! She also has been a guardian ad litem for Haywood County. She serves on the community table, the Jackson County Board of Health, and the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Board of Jackson County. Now, people call her Eleanor and everything but Eleanor, okay? This is the way you spell it, just so you know how to pronounce it. E-L-L-E-R-N-A. Is that right, ma'am? She is a most amazing person, and I'm grateful to be a friend of hers, and that she helped me so much with the book. And I want to use these words for her. I don't know how to describe her. I think she's marvelous. I call her the marvelous Miss E, but then I started thinking about all of these wonderful words. She's an extraordinary African-American businesswoman who is an elegant, energetic, expressive, enlightened, empowered educator, an executive in her own business, and an example for all of us. Really proud to know you, Elena. Thank you. Yeah. We have Marty Newbold here. And let's see if I can get this one right. How many people don't know Marty? I see 2 or 3 hands. Marty, make sure that they see you. Marty was wonderful to work with on planning this, and I appreciate you, Marty. Well, she's been my contact throughout this finalizing of the program, and I've told you all about her ancestor, Nathan Carter Newbold, and so I won't go into that anymore right now. But he was one, I'll just say quickly that he was one that made sure that the African Americans got a real education, because the racist people of the day only wanted black people to have industrial education and learn how to be a sophisticated housemaid or cook. And so he made sure that there was actually classes taught that would give them a real education. So even my high school in Asheville, Allen High School, started out as an industrial school, teaching the young women how to be maids and to know how to act in front of the, I guess you'll call it, the masters, guests. So we have to think about what African Americans have been through. And I'm glad to see the white faces here, because it tells me that you're here to really learn something that you can take back, and I want you to share with other people. Marty, before her retirement, Marty was the Associate Director of Degree Plus at Western Carolina University. Marty, stop me if I say something that's not this misinformation. What I learned about that program was that students who participate in Degree Plus are better prepared to deal with the new world that they have to face after they get out of college. The program at Western Carolina University provides a well-rounded training agenda that includes cultural sensitivity, teamwork, leadership training, and experience in an intentional way. Now you have to be intentional when you go out and try to do some of these things. You can't just say it, and it's going to go over many people's heads. So you've got to remember that when you're trying to help people. Marty has created and directed programs that promote multiculturalism, diversity, and the understanding of the other for students and the campus community. She has also overseen the outreach services as a case manager, a part of the case management team for immediate response to distressed students. Nowadays, all of our young people are going through so many stresses that is a very important thing to have done. Do you mind, Marty, giving us some information about your background and why you do this work and who assisted you in planning and that kind of thing?
Oh, okay, I'll make it quick and dirty. Not dirty.
Oh, thank you.
My background's not that interesting. My mom and dad are, my mom's from Fayetteville. My dad's from Wilmington. But I was raised in Texas. And thank goodness I don't still live there. And I also spent 30 years in Florida. Thank goodness I don't still live there too. But anyway, my parents, I was born in 1954. So I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and those were real changing times. But I grew up in a tiny town where you couldn't be away from other people who are different from you because everybody was in the little bitty town. We went to different churches, but we were in the little bitty town. So, I mean, I'm talking 1,300 people. So, we were integrated. The school was integrated when I was in the 5th grade, and my mom and dad always taught me, particularly my mama. I never ever heard the N word in my house. To treat people, no matter their background, where they came from, their socioeconomic, treat them with respect. And I was just, since she asked me to do this, I've been thinking back. You have these flashes that my daddy was a Presbyterian minister, but he administrated the children's home in that little bitty town outside the town, and he integrated the children's home and he integrated the swimming pool. And that was a big deal for black girls and boys and white girls and boys to swim together. Was a big deal. So I'm proud of that. And I found, I was telling Ann that my mom and dad are both dead, but I found through the stuff, some of the material that Daddy had that was from Mom from way back. Mom went to, up in Richmond, she went to a school that was called ATS, which is now Presbyterian School of Christian Education or something else, and my dad was a minister. I can't believe I need a microphone. Okay. And I found a paper that she wrote back in the late 40s when she was doing Christian education. And it was a paper where she wrote, she was in a white school, but she wrote about how it makes no sense that black and white congregations cannot worship together. And I was kind of blown away, and she even talked about in Fayetteville when she remembered that she played with little black girls and boys. They were her best friends in the streets down there, but once they went to school, she was not allowed to be with them anymore. Now, my mom was born in the 20s, so that, we're talking a long time ago, but she had this ethos back then, and Ann says, where do you get it from? Well, I think it came down through my mama and my daddy, but particularly my mama. And my daddy's brother was Kenneth R. Newbold, who was the superintendent of Greensboro schools, and he integrated Greensboro schools. So he's both the people have been on the front lines in my family, but they would never ever consider themselves activists. They were just doing what they felt was right. So, and for me, just to do this work is to continue the legacy in my family in a different way. They do it through churches. I do it through other means. And so that's kind of what I want to say there. Now, not my family's not all rosy, and because on one side of my family was a huge plantation in eastern North Carolina, and I'm doing some looking back at that one and trying to find out what that was all about, because it was all glorified. As you know, the Great South and, you know, our fearless ancestors. That wasn't my mom and dad saying that. It was other relatives. So it was the literal whitewashing of history.
Got it.
Thank you.
Yeah, history has been whitewashed altogether. Thank you, Marty. Again, I say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Okay, this is Riverview Baptist Church, and all this land used to be black land. But even there's a mountain behind it that belongs to the Pettits. He's the one. His great grandson is the one that they're trying to commission a art piece here from Philadelphia. But what has happened is the people that have gotten this land, they're moving up the mountain. They're taking their land, homestead thing. And somebody put their name on his land, and he came to pay his taxes, and they said he no longer had any land. But he put his name back on there, as far as I know, but they told him he had to pay to have the whole mountain surveyed to prove that it was his. And at that time, it was $200,000. So now, finally, his family is getting involved. His great-grandchildren are getting involved, so hopefully they can stop him from taking their land. And there was another church up at Webster that the Cowards bought that land. And they said there was devil worshippers in there, but it wasn't. But that was the way that they got to take that land. It's around the old Buchanan Loop, and where there's a rock wall, that used to be where that church stood. So, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All of us have different information, and we need to share it with each other so that it doesn't go down. There's an old African saying that says, when an elder dies, sometimes it's even the young people, but when an elder dies, a whole library goes with them.
Yeah.
Leroy Jackson, you're on this this bus right now because we're raising funds for the Leroy Jackson, the NAACP Leroy Jackson Scholarship Fund. Leroy was, can you hear back there, Tommy? Okay. He was born in 1948. He's a little younger than I, or he was. And his father was Leroy. They were young. They were in their early, Minnie was 20 and he was 21 when he was born. He had two sons. He died in 2017 in Silva, and he was 69 years old. I would like to thank each one of you who decided that you wanted to support the scholarship fund in his name. And Marty is going to share for us in a minute more about the scholarship fund. My work with One Dozen Who Care was supported by Leroy in 2011 when we tried to put together a group of African American men like the One Dozen Who Care women. It was called 100 Strong, and he was really, really instrumental in pulling together a list of men. And we had about 40 men that came to Andrews dressed in suits. They looked marvelous. And people later have told me that they were wondering, that everybody was looking and peeping out windows and everything. Where are all these black men coming from, all dressed up like this? But we wanted the young boys and the men that are like Leroy, volunteering and working and standing out in the community. We wanted to have these men help them. But it's very difficult. Sometimes people say to me, well, black people don't come out to anything. Well, hey, we're 1.5% of the population. So if you see me there, or you see one other person there, that's a large percentage, right? So he was a U.S. Army veteran. when he served in Vietnam, and he was a member of the NAACP and was director of the Asheville Parks and Recreation. And he was real active in civic organizations. His sons were Shelley Bryson and Justin Jackson. He had been married to Diane Jackson, who was one of his dear friends. And we have Tom Baker back there. Tom, can you take just a minute or two to talk about what you know about Leroy?
Well, Leroy and I first met him. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Leroy and I first met each other when we were about 11 or 12. The Little League hadn't been integrated at that time, and a lot of us kids in Webster would come to Silva to play baseball, and the only field that we could really use without having to schedule it was there across from the Liberty Baptist Church, and where the community center now is. There was the ball field for the black school that was just above. And Leroy and I become friends early on. You know, the kids got along pretty good. It was the adults that were not getting along. So we did find, and they integrated Little League in '63, and Leroy was picked on our team, and we got to be even better friends. We'd go camping together, and Leroy had never camped out before, and that was kind of exciting for him. And high school, they integrated in 1964, and Leroy and Tommy Love and 3 or 4 other kids came to Silva Webster. And me and Tommy Love and Leroy suffered through probably the worst season Silva Webster ever had. Everybody kicked our butt except Franklin, which, you know, to me means a lot because I never did like Franklin. But Leroy and I graduated together. I went in the Army, and he got drafted. His father was a veteran of the Second World War, and my father was, and our upbringing was very similar, and so we just connected on how we were raised and in the military. So I got sent to Nam in '68, and so did Leroy. Vietnam was a learning experience for both of us. We both learned that people bleed the same color, no matter what color skin you got. And it's in what's in your heart that counts. And when he came back, he finished his degree, and he worked over in Asheville. I think he was director of the Parks and Rec program over there. But we remained friends throughout life, and it tickles me to be able to help and be involved in some of the fundraisers for his scholarship. Leroy, in my opinion, was a heck of a good man, and he was a friend. So I could tell you a ton of stories about growing up. So if you ever wanted to sit down and talk to me, I can tell you some more. But he was a friend and a brother. So thank you.
And now Marty's going to tell us about the fund itself.
Yeah, the Leroy Jackson Memorial Fund was set up when, Carol, when was it set up? About 2020. And what happens is an appeal goes out to the public or to the school systems in, I think we have 6, all the western counties, not Buckham, but west, for students who are going to go to college, who are graduating seniors. They can apply. They have to have their transcript and letters and things like that, but they have to write an essay. And some of the stuff that they have to write about is their personal experience of diversity, their personal experience of discrimination, if that's happened, because some of it are white kids too, but you know, if they haven't felt discriminated, what have they observed? And what are they going to do about it? That's that in a nutshell. Okay? And a panel will evaluate the essays and the application and selects. They get $3,000 for their expenses for the first year in school. And given the kind of outpouring that y'all have done today, and there's going to be a salad supper fundraiser, when is it?
September 30th, and I got some information about that.
Okay,
that I'll share.
at lunch, okay. We might even be able at some point to make it more money or more scholarships, because this is marvelous. The young woman who won last year is a senior at, what is the name of this, Smoky Mountain, in Silva, and she's going to go on to UNC Greensboro to be a teacher. And she talked about how she was going to have diversity and inclusion, I know the dirty words, DEI, in her classrooms. And she was going to teach middle school. So this is going to have a ripple effect. So Leroy Jackson's legacy lives on.
Today, this morning before I left, I anybody who wants to send a donation, I put the address on. They can do that. So hopefully you'll get even more out there. Yeah, I hope so. Now I'm going to talk to you a minute about the NAACP, the work of the NAACP. We need to stop for just a minute. There's an elephant in the room. I don't know how many of you were on a thread, I guess they call it, discussion that kind of got contentious a little while ago. But we'll mention this, and I'm just going to talk a little bit. This is the work of the NAACP. I don't like politics, but we have to realize that if you go all the way back to that White Lion ship docked in Hampton, Virginia in 1619, those 20 black people were kidnapped already, and they ended up being what we call slaves, enslaved people here. And ever since then, there's been planned aggression against black-skinned people. And that would be in the churches, the workplace, the politics, the whole society, the society as a whole. It doesn't mean that individuals, and I always say this when I speak, because most of the people I speak with happen to be white people. If you didn't do it, don't start feeling guilty. Stop right now and stop, because if you're not guilty, don't claim that guilt. Somebody did this dirt. Some people are still doing the dirt, and you are the one that can. Only thing you can do, eating the elephant one bite at a time, is to try to work on the folks that are being quiet. The quiet people are the ones that can make a difference, but at this point, that can be rough, because people who've been silent have allowed some horrible things to happen to other people. So, what I'm going to talk about now is to mention this. Every time there's a step forward for justice and freedom for African Americans, we get distracted by other issues. And that's why I'm leading back to that thread on the Facebook Messenger. Northern abolitionists were really working to help black people with freedom. And then the women's suffrage movement jumped in the mid-1800s and just took over everything. People were just thinking about the women's movement. So the black assistance for black people just went down. The Women's Rights Convention in Akron, Ohio, there was a black woman. How many people have ever heard of Sojourner Truth? Well, everybody. She's the one that stepped up and said, "Ain't I a woman? Look at me. I'm black, but I'm a woman." So she stood up, and she was a powerful speaker. And she spoke about the rights of African Americans and women during and after the Civil War. Because of the efforts of the people then, and right after that, the women finally gained the right to vote in 1919, 1920. I want to make sure I got that right. Even then, societal rules and laws prevented black women from using these rights for many, many years, and even sometimes up till now. Just as it was when the black men who received the right to vote with the 15th Amendment in 1869-70, before women, any women, had that same issue. The right was there, but they couldn't use it. Make sense? Mm-hmm. The women's movement in the 1960s and 70s, when I was trying to make a living and trying to start my life back in the 70s and starting a business of my own and everything, the women's movement had black women and white women at first, but then suddenly the white women were the ones that were the leaders, and they were the ones in all the magazines, the newspaper articles, everything, and the black women were left out. So there we go again. Each time there's a step toward racial equity for black people, some other movement comes in. So there people were burning their bras, and everybody was a feminist. Men were saying, oh, I'm a feminist also, and all of that. But it ended up that the rights that came out of all that were mostly for white women, especially in the job market. Then Tawana Burke came along with the Me Too movement in 2006, and that stood out. The news, all the news articles, everything you heard was about Tawana Burke and or even some white women who took on the Me Too movement. Some movie stars or actors or actresses or whatever. That took our eyes off of justice for black people too for a short time. Now, the movement, each one of these movements helped somebody, and it's a good thing. Not like we're not happy that people are getting helped, but we've got to remember what's happening with Black Lives. Black Lives Matter has been put down, denigrated. It doesn't mean white lives don't matter. It means black lives do matter. We have to wake up and stop letting people make us think negative about something like that. Native American lives, Latinx lives, the gay and lesbian lives, all of these people matter. But why is it such a bad thing to say black lives matter? My life matters. I'm here to do all I can to bring us together, to build bridges and tear down these walls that divide us. That's what we do. So the Black Lives Matter, its mission was to eradicate white supremacy and build local power to intervene in violence inflicted on black communities by the state and vigilantes. So now we have the LGBTQIA movement, and that's gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual people. And folks want to take our eyes off of what we're trying to do by saying, well, if you don't believe in rights for them, then this is the big issue. Well, it is. It's a big issue, like it is for racial rights for African Americans. Okay, the NAACP has a top priority. It's justice for all, especially African Americans, from the beginning. That's what it was all about. So we're always going to work for justice for all. And so what I want us to understand is that we don't have to separate these things. We got to work together with them. We need to work on all of these things together and not put down people because they believe one way or another. So I want to ask us to work together in peace, and that will lead to the justice that we need for everybody. Whenever you look at facts, Kathy Avery of the Western North Carolina Health Equity Network says black and indigenous residents of Western North Carolina get sicker and die sooner than their white peers. Similarly, rural folks experience poorer health and die earlier than city folks. That's all of us. So then, if you go to the naacp.org/issues website, you can understand why we're here together today. there was a white man named James Work, and we know James' picture. We can see him, blood all over him. When he went on the first freedom ride with CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, in the 1960s. And he said he felt really guilty that he quit after that, but they broke his ribs, they hit him over the head with a wrench. I mean, they did horrible things to this white man who wanted to help and bring justice for all. His idea was just, let's be together, let's help. And we also know Rodney King always told us that, but I think I'll mention that somewhere else in here. But when I was a kid, I was carefully protected in Andrews until 1961 in my household. I was safely tucked away in boarding school through 1965. And then I was swept away to Ohio University up north, as they call it, till 1969. And after that, I became an airline stewardess and traveled, and my mind wasn't on justice for all. It was just on let me live, let me have a good time. That's what happens with all of us when we're young. But I'm like James Work. He said later he quit the movement when he was so badly, brutally beaten and everything. And he felt guilty for many years until he talked with a black man who said, you can't do that to yourself. So right now, most of us will never have to be beaten. If we speak up, they're going to look down on you sometimes. You've got to be a certain politic, you have to be in a certain area of politics, conservative or liberal, whatever it is. But just think about what that means. I am now doing all I can, though I didn't do it when I was in my 20s. But when I was in my 20s, what I did do was I started the first African-American greeting card business in Columbus, Ohio, and I was one of 3 businesses in the nation that created African-American oriented greeting cards. All the way back there in 1970s, I created a deck of black playing cards. John Glenn spoke up for me when I set an appointment in Indianapolis to go and sell to the Army Air Force Exchange Service. I set the appointment, I called the week ahead and drove all the way from Columbus to Indianapolis and got down there and there was nobody there to meet me. When I came back, I was in tears, of course, and a friend told me, you need to call John Glenn's office. He was a senator in Ohio at the time. And I called, and I've always said it was him on the phone. I don't know if it was for real, but he said that won't happen. And within 2 weeks, I had an order from the Army Air Force Exchange Service. So when you watch Hidden Figures, and you see how John Glenn left the other astronauts and walked over to the black computers and talked to them, I believe that, because I believe in what he did for me personally. Sometimes it can't be that personal, you know what I'm saying? So I wanted to say that, and then NAACP, this bus tour is trying to open up our eyes, all of our eyes. That's what we're trying to do here. And I think we can keep doing this. It might not be a bus tour, it could be something else, and I think you're already doing some other events. But whenever people think of Appalachia, who do they think of? It's usually a white woman, white hair, she's wearing a long dress, she's doing some kind of crafts. That's what they think of. But there are black people all over Appalachia as well. Well, my theme for many years, as I create my artwork, I write, and I do these kind of presentations to colleges and churches and other organizations, is to let people know that we're here, and we're going to be here. That's the way it is. So everybody needs to start working together and stop just looking at the skin color. My job is to show that the black community is a vital part of this region's diversity, because mostly when you think of this region, you're thinking of Native Americans and Scotch-Irish people. And we're here. but we kind of get looked over. So we're not going to allow that to happen, are we?
No.
I love hearing no. I worked with the Cherokee Healing and Wellness for a while, and they really have made some steps ahead, but within the ranks of minority people, there are always conflicts. You have to have a fight about religion. You have to have a fight about transgender versus, what do they call the other, I can't even think of what cisgender. Yeah. Why? You know, we just let the people live. They can live. So almost all of our records have been destroyed. Like I said, they immediately tore down our school. As soon as they integrated, they tore down the little school that could have been a place. We always met there for church services because it was a bigger space than our church. When we were having church services and serving dinner on the ground, which we called it dinner on the ground, but it was inside the building, that was good for us. The school and the church worked together throughout the black communities out in these regions. We also worked across the lines of religion. Methodist and Baptist and Episcopalian, all of us worked together, and that's the only way we could survive. But they tore down, they destroyed all the records. I can't find anything, and even with the state archives, they don't have anything from the Andrews school system. And that breaks my heart. Maybe there's something, and I'll keep working, but I need to document what I can find out. I'll repeat again, they say that when an elder dies, a whole library goes with them. So around you, just like Marty's told us about her family and what the good and the bad, but write it down. Leave it for somebody. Put it in the library. Just make a little folder and put it in the library so people can find it. When your grandchildren or great-grandchildren are looking for information, they'll have something. There's an old African proverb that says, until the lion writes the story, the hunter will always be the hero. So I've spoken with my friend Selma about who's keeping our records, who's taking care of us. We need to make sure that we write the story. We are heroes as well. So let's make sure of that. I have a quick announcement. The History Press has asked me to write another history book, and anybody might have, or all of you could have some information to share with me for the new book about your relationships, if you're white, your relationships with the black community, like Tom just gave us. Information that can go down the line. If it's in a book, it's not going to be destroyed so easily as oral history can be. So I need your assistance. Any photographs you want to share with me or whatever. I don't have enough of them, but my address is on one of these brochures here that I have. And so if anybody has something they want to get in touch with me, grab one of these. I don't have enough for everybody, so just if you're interested. This should be fun, intense, information filled. a lot of things should happen on this trip right here. I want you to help me with something fun. There is a mantra that a woman named Cindy Miles from over in Franklin was a laughter therapist, and she came to the Multicultural Women's Development Conference and taught us this little saying. And so I'm hoping that anybody know Patricia Washington? Okay, yep, there you go. It says, as you look around, and I want you to do this with me, it says, you are amazing. I am amazing. We are amazing. Yes, we are. So I want you to do it with me, okay? You are amazing. I am amazing. We are amazing. Yes, we are. You are amazing. I am amazing. We are amazing. Yes, we are. How's is that? You need to teach that to your kids and your grandkids and everybody, because you're amazing. All right? Tell them about how long will it be before we get to Frank? From St. Zip from here. We're here. We're here? I have forgotten. Okay, Eleanor says that we're here almost at St. Zip, so I just have a real quick thing. Marie Cochran was going to be on the bus with us this time, and I look around, and Mary Sue Casey was also going to be one on here, but she couldn't come. She's not feeling well. Marie had an accident, and so she's said she totaled her car and everything, so we just need to wish her well. But she started a project called the Afro-Latin Artist Project. And what she does is she's trying to support the black artists in the region. And so we're proud of that. And she and Victoria Casey McDonald's daughter are trying to preserve the legacy of Victoria Casey McDonald, who wrote, I think it's 4 books that I have listed here. One of them is called Just Over the Hill, and somebody might have read that one. And then African Americans of Jackson County, From Slavery to Integration, was the one that I bought first of hers. And then Living in the Shadow of Slavery and Under the Light of Darkness, Love and Marriage in the Antebellum South for Slaves. Those books that she wrote, try to look at Victoria A. Casey McDonald's books, and you'll learn a lot. She's from Jackson County. And
she's cited in the resources on inside your purple, or not purple binder, so it used to be in the WCU. Inside your blue binder, on the back is information about some of the sources, and she's one of them.
Great. Fantastic. All right. So we're here at St. Zip. St. Zip. Yeah. My cousin Joe Chavis is supposed to be here as a host, and I think he's going to bring his wife, and his wife is the sister of Shirley West Parks, who I'll talk about later if we get a chance. So thank you all for being so patient and listening carefully.
And this is lunchtime, so
wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Well, what's that yonder I see so white? God's gonna trouble the water. Well, it must be the children of the Israelites. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade